Millennial Millie show. Well, Balenciaga, the popular fashion company, has come under much scrutiny because they released a campaign where they showed little children in photo shoots holding teddy bears that were literally wearing BDSM attire. If you don't know what BDSM is, it is bondage sadomasochism. It is very sexual. It's adult content, really and truly. And children should not be holding teddy bears, okay? Meaning like bears. If you know the terminology in the gay world, a bear is like a big man that's into boys, right? And they're wearing these little teddy bears with BDSM gear on. Now, many people saw this and were disgusted by it. Why are these children holding bears, promoting that type of sexuality in these really just bizarre photo shoots? I mean, they're really bizarre. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. See, what we also saw was this photo shoot here that Balenciaga put out, where in the background there's a book that has the name Michael Borman on it. Now, Michael Borman is an artist, and when you actually Google and look up his art, these are the pictures. Here's a picture of Michael Borman's, right? These are the pictures that you see all over the internet of his artwork. Naked children covered in blood, in very bizarre and grotesque images. Some of them they're holding like looks like hands or parts of body parts, just really disturbing things. And we all know that Kim Kardashian, she has kind of been one of the faces of Balenciaga. So what we saw was a lot of people started coming out and literally burning their Balenciaga clothes and attire and saying, I completely denounce Balenciaga. This is disturbing and disgusting. And any fashion company that wants to promote children in this way so blatantly for everyone to see, you know, I'm not wearing their clothes. So that's what a lot of people did. They started burning the clothes, and there was a lot of silence, though, and people were expecting Kim Kardashian to come out and denounce Balenciaga, given that she herself is a mom, but we didn't see that. So Candace Owens went out there and started calling out Kim Kardashian for not essentially denouncing Balenciaga for promoting child sexuality and pedophilia. Um, let's go ahead and look at some of this clip here where Candace Owens calls out uh, Balenciaga essentially, because she calls out Balenciaga, but also she calls out Kim Kardashian because Kim Kardashian represents and reps Balenciaga's fashion. You see all these photo shoots of Kim Kardashian where she's, dressed head to toe in Balenciaga gear. I, for one, if I found out a company that I was working with or for suddenly, did a photo shoot showing little kids holding teddy bears wearing bondage sadomasochism attire, I would just be mortified, and I would want to come out and make it known essentially that I have no support for that. So let's go ahead and see Candace Owens call out.
As if you're not Kim Kardashian, who can pick up the phone, call the CEO, call the creative director, call the stylist directly and say, what the hell is this? And get an immediate answer. But no, you think we're all so stupid that we're going to believe that it took you some time to understand what happened. You needed time to process. No, what you actually did, Kim, was you probably talked to your mom and said, oh my God, I don't understand. Your mom said, it's okay, Kim. It's Thanksgiving. Give it a couple of days and everyone's going to forget. He was be quiet and hope that everyone would get lost turkey and be too tired to talk about it. But what actually happened was that hashtag Balenciaga groomers kept trending all weekend. And then your name started trending. And you realize about the third time that I hit you on Instagram and millions of people were in your comments saying, comment on Balenciaga, that it wasn't going to go away. So you then drummed up this statement. Let's keep going and see what you said. She goes on to say, as a mother of 4, I have been shaken by the disturbing images. The safety of children must be held with the highest regard, and any attempts to normalize child abuse of any kind should have no place in our society, period. Okay, I agree with that. It's wonderful. That is no place in our society. It needs to be condemned. We're not going to normalize it. Give it to me, Kim. Tell us you're done with Balenciaga. No, that's not what she does. She's not going to do that. Here's what she says next. She says, I appreciate Balenciaga's removal of the campaigns and apology. In speaking with them, I believe they understand the seriousness of the issue and will take the necessary measures for this to never happen again. As for my future with Balenciaga, I am currently reevaluating my relationship with the brand, basing it off of their willingness to accept accountability for something that should have never happened to begin with, and the actions that I'm expecting to see them take to protect children.
Okay, so, I mean, you get the point, all right? Kim Kardashian, she had a chance to really come out and speak out against the way that children are being portrayed in these photo shoots by a company that she closely works with. If she would have walked away from Balenciaga, it would have made a really loud, clear statement against the exploitation of children, and she just didn't. And that really has a lot to do with how much these celebrities in Hollywood are actually controlled. People think that they have minds of their own, that they can just freely speak and say whatever they want, but the reality is they have to keep their private thoughts to themselves, or they risk having their entire careers destroyed. They risk having their families being torn apart and other types of retaliation from Hollywood, okay? And we're going to talk more about Hollywood too. Um, Now let's get into Hollywood, and we'll go with Kanye West, right? So we know that Kim Kardashian's husband, Kanye West has been vocal. He has been a Trump supporter. He's wore MAGA hats. He's come out and he did a lot of, photo shoots with Candace Owens. He wore that White Lives Matter t-shirt, right? He's been pretty controversial because he's actually a Hollywood celebrity who has a lot of power, a lot of influence, and he's not afraid to use it. He's actually really coming out and speaking his mind on issues that are very controversial, and that's landed him in a lot of hot water with Hollywood and with the media. Now, recently, Kanye West set up a dinner with President Trump. Now, we know Trump just recently announced his bid for the 2024 presidential election, so he's running again. Kanye West also seems to have plans to run in 2024 as well, so that should definitely get very interesting. Now, the meeting between Kanye and Trump didn't go so well. Trump essentially didn't know who Kanye was bringing with him to the dinner. So apparently he brought Nick Fuentes and Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo has become Kanye West's campaign manager, and apparently he's also the campaign manager for Marjorie Taylor Greene. So it made sense why Milo would be there. Now, Nick Fuentes, that seems to be the really hot button issue. You have a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans coming out and really scratching their head, questioning Trump. Why on earth would you meet with Nick Fuentes, who is vocally anti Semitic? Now, Trump, his defense, he came out and he said that he did not know who Nick Fuentes was and he did not know he was meeting with him. Okay, that makes sense. Sometimes you meet with friends or people, like, he thought he was meeting with Kanye or Ye, and Ye brought Fuentes. And it's possible that Ye doesn't fully know too much about the conservative movement, and he's getting wrapped up with people in the movement, not necessarily knowing who they are and what they're truly about. But we know that Kanye has been vocal, and he's come out as well, saying things about how the Hollywood Jewish power structure out there has ascended him, how they have been doing unfair contracts essentially with a lot of creators, a lot of artists in the industry, and he's been trying to call that out. And when he has tried to do that, he has been labeled by the mainstream media as anti-Semitic. Now, let's definitely delve more into this topic here because I find it very interesting. One thing I find interesting also is how the GOP, essentially the rhinos, how they are positioning themselves to essentially use this to their benefit, right? So they are using this to their benefit because they are saying, look, see, this is why you shouldn't support Trump because he's having meetings with anti Semites, right? So the GOP is trying to use this as their justification to say, don't vote for Trump in the primary, vote for somebody else like Mike Pence. Yeah, right. Who's going to vote for Mike Pence? But really, they're probably having someone else that they plan to run that they want to be the pick, right? And they're hoping to make Trump look so wild and so out of control and extreme that people want to just walk it back and settle on someone else who really is just a control puppet by the establishment. And so some people say they think this is a setup. I think that it very well could have been a setup, but I think Kanye was genuinely wanting to meet with Trump, and I think Kanye brought Nick Fuentes at the behest, essentially, of Milo. So Milo apparently was the one who introduced Kanye West to Nick Fuentes, right? We have to ask ourselves, why you know, why are we now seeing the GOP jump on this and essentially try to use this to take Trump out? Personally, I mean, let's look at this tweet here by Keith Olbermann, which we know Keith Olbermann has been, a very loud enemy of Trump, an enemy of anyone who they determine to be MAGA, so to speak. He has come out and basically said that, this is why, all the Republicans, the rhinos, whatever, the conservatives need to all step away from Trump, essentially. That this was the moment where the rhinos can use this to secure their candidate for a run against Trump. So he says Republicans see a window to exercise Trump over Nick Fuentes. Relax, I'm not interested in their GOP morals. This is about their pure grunting lust for power. This timeline ends with Trump as a third party and splitting the GOP vote. We want this. So I have heard some people saying that, the Republicans might try to refuse to give Trump the nomination, and that if he did that, that Trump would then run on a third party ticket. I personally don't think he would, but I mean, obviously the Democrats would love that scenario because oftentimes when you have a split ticket like that, it goes to the favor of whoever's on a solid united front, right?
I think Republicans just found a window through which to exorcise Trump from their party over Nick Fuentes and Kanye West. Relax, I'm not talking about their flexible and utterly reversible morals. They don't care. Trump doesn't care. But when Rick Scott says this isn't the Republican Party and a dozen senators hit Trump and Pence demands an apology, this is about the political calculus. This developing timeline ends with Trump as a third party candidate who splits the Republican vote. We want this. Plus, how soccer's World Cup accelerated anti-government protests in China. And if you've ever wanted to smash a guitar against a wall, I got to do it in an ESPN commercial with the now World Cup commentator, Alexei Lalas. I'll tell you all about it, plus much more, on the Tuesday Countdown podcast, now available wherever you get your freaking podcast.
Okay, so there you have it. All right. Clearly, you see how the Democrats are using this as an opportunity to try to push an anti-Trump agenda. Of course, go figure. But what's really going on here? What are we seeing? What's happening? I mean, we see this power play with the Republicans, and like I said, it's very likely that they're going to try to refuse to give Trump that nomination. And recently, my pillow and he's launched his new campaign, and that he is running for the chair of the Republican National Committee against Ronna McDonald. So Ronna McDonald is a never Trumper, and I think it's important that if you did have somebody like Mike Lindell chairing the RNC, you're more likely to see that Trump essentially be made that the GOP Republican candidate, right? So we're seeing how, okay, they're making their move. They're trying to not give it to him, but here comes Mike Lindell. And so people who are Republicans, we got to get behind someone like Mike Lindell when he's deciding to launch his campaign so that he can go up against these rhino establishment people that want to refuse Trump a nomination, essentially. And look, here's the reality. It's not all about Trump, okay? The conservative grassroots movement is not about Trump. The conservative grassroots movement is certainly not about is it's not about an establishment candidate. Okay, that is what we do not need. That is what we do not want. Okay. Really and truly, it doesn't matter who they put as the front and the figurehead of the conservative grassroots movement, as long as it is somebody who is not establishment. The way we know that Trump is not establishment is how hard he has been attacked by the establishment for saying a big, you know what, to them and essentially doing what he felt was best for the American people. I mean, the man literally lost hundreds of millions of dollars by being president. Okay. That's how you know when someone's being genuine and it's actually affecting their pocketbook in a negative way, but they feel like they are doing the right thing. That's why, honestly, I don't feel like Kanye or Ye meeting with Trump. I don't feel like that was necessarily I don't think Ye was being malicious. I don't think Ye was trying to do anything harmful towards Trump necessarily. I think that Ye genuinely wanted to meet with Trump for dinner. And I think people like Fuentes and others attach themselves to Ye in order to get proximity. Okay. And that's what happened. Okay. That is exactly what happened. And so now this whole story went pretty viral, right? And, we have Tim Cast, who essentially, apparently, Cassandra Fairbanks made this connection and got Ye and Milo and Nick Fuentes to come on Tim Cast's show. Now, if you guys have watched this interview, I think that really and truly it was a big missed opportunity. I feel like Tim Pool could have done a better job getting to the heart of the issues. I think that, if you watch the interview, it seemed too much like he was just trying to virtue signal. He was afraid of being canceled for not very loudly and vocally speaking out about anti Semitism. So, it just seemed too much like virtue signaling, and you could tell that Kanye wasn't digging it. Okay. You could tell that as the interview progressed, every time Kanye tried to bring up an issue he had, right? Tim Pool would immediately he would disinvalidate it, right? He would write it off and then he would just go to this stance of like, we can't be anti-Semitic, right? And meanwhile, he keeps writing off Kanye's experience and not validating any inch of it. And so what happens in those type of situations is you'll see that even though you might agree with Tim Pool and think he's a more level-headed person, what you're going to see is someone like Kanye who has had a real experience. And I don't believe that Kanye is actually truly somebody who hates Jewish people or would want to see them done any harm. I do not believe that at all. I think what it is Kanye has had a experience that he's trying to make sense of. He can't quite wrap his head around what's going on, right? So rather than actually getting to the heart of the issue by asking really in-depth questions, it was just this standoff of, virtue signaling. And then Kanye got up and walked out of the room. He essentially was like, I'm out of here, and walked off the set, right? Early from the interview. So you guys could watch that if you want to see it. But okay, so first of all, let's get into the heart of the issue. And I think that what's going on here is, Kanye, he's had a real situation where he, as an artist and a musician, has been taken advantage of by people in Hollywood, right? And here's the thing, he's connecting that with all Jewish people because what you see in Hollywood from that perspective is there's a lot of Jewish power and influence in Hollywood. Believe me, I have been in Hollywood, okay? I have been around these people and I've experienced exactly what he's talking about firsthand, okay? But the problem is we're not using the proper vocabulary, the proper terminology. Let's just say this. pretend that you were living in the Bronx and your family kept getting beat up or killed, family members being killed off or being, done bad deals by Italian people, right? Over and over again, Italians were doing you wrong and coming after your people, right? You would start to think Italian people all around are all gay and they're out to get me, right? There's something real happening here. And to write that and say, you know what? You can't say that. You're a racist. You're a bigot, and just completely, you know, refuse to validate that against, you know, the problem is it's not speaking to truth. So Kanye keeps trying to scratch deeper. So what is he doing? He's following the thread and he's going down in the directions of people like Fuentes, others who are just really provocateurs, really, okay? Misguiding, okay? But this is the real issue. Imagine if you had the proper vocabulary to know what you were actually dealing with and you said, I'm being targeted by the Italian mafia in the Bronx, and my family is on their turf right now having it out with me, right? And this is a squabble because they're trying to maintain their dominance and their power over their area, and this is really me dealing with a mafia, okay? So the problem here is we're caught in this, anti-Semitism, blah, 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 right? Because we're not using the proper terminology. What Kanye is actually talking about and what he's actually explaining is the Jewish mafia. The Jewish have a mafia. So do Italians. So do the Irish. So do the Chinese. Okay. There are groups. There's a black mafia. There's a Mexican mafia. Okay. And black gangs, Mexican cartels, right? You have tribalism in certain groups. And then what happens is they start to dominate certain industries and grow power. And so what he's actually describing seems like it's a power dynamic. There's Hollywood Jewish mafia, which has a lot of power and control in the media and the movie production studios industry in Hollywood. That is a fact, okay? So I think the terminology is key here. Now, it's also interesting, though, when you talk about Kim Kardashian and we don't see her calling out Balenciaga, right? And then we actually talk about, okay, well, Kim is Armenian. From what I've heard, right? This is just from what I've heard. I'm not saying it as a fact. It's just what I've heard, okay? Is that her family is laced up really good with the Armenian mafia. Armenian mafia and the Jewish mafia work together. So that'd be why we're seeing what we're seeing. Now, let's look a little bit of this clip here of the older gentleman giving us, we'll get a tiny little explanation of some of the history into the Jewish mafia. Let's go to this clip right here.
So the Jewish mob basically starts at the time of the large immigration from East Europe in the late 1880s, 1890s. And of course, poverty, they come into the United States, they move to the cities, and they form the ghettos of the United States, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Boston, New York, Brooklyn, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland. And these the original Jewish gangster was really it was brutal. He was a brute. He was brutal. In fact, there's many years ago that said of the prisoners in the New York prison system were Jews. What crimes? A lot of the crimes were violence.
What year was this?
Probably at the turn of the 20th century.
Got it.
All right. And it was the name of the book was called The Rise and Fall of the Jewish Gangster, Jewish Mobster, something like that. The interesting part about it, Patrick, was that they were involved in all forms of shakedowns, violence, beatings, murders, and prostitution.
Okay.
All right.
Jeffrey Epstein ringing a bell? Prostitution?
The majority of
Sex
the
trafficking?
prostitute in that time were Jewish women. They'd come, they couldn't find their husbands, and the pimps would be waiting for them on the piers.
Majority of the prostitutes in the 20s were Jewish women.
Not 20s, late 1890s.
1890s.
1890s,
Okay,
1900s.
Got it.
Okay, so we don't have time to get too much further into this video, but you can always look it up and do your own research on your own. But yes, there is a Jewish mafia, and it has existed in America for quite some time now. Notice how they talk about the sex trade, right? Sex trafficking. Jeffrey Epstein, ring a bell, okay? So look, this has nothing to do with generalizing someone just based on their ethnicity, okay? And that's the problem. See, that's where they get you. They get you caught up in, oh, if you bring up, you know, these group of Jewish people in the Hollywood movie industry, the media industry, the press industry, that somehow you're saying something about Jewish people in general, when no, you have to use the right terminology. He's talking about the Jewish influence, okay? Just like there's an Italian mafia, just like there's a Mexican cartel, just like there are black gangs, okay? There are Irish mafias, okay? So these are organized crime syndicates, organized crime groups, all right? So we have to, be careful how we use our terminology here, because that's where they get you, like I said. And the problem is if you don't have the proper terminology, you run the risk of going down into the direction of people like Nick Fuentes, who, I mean, you look into this guy's background and, I mean, my goodness, something is seriously off with him. I've seen bizarre takes of him on supposedly, allegedly, a date with a cat boy. And I mean, he's just bizarre. All right. And it does beg the question, what is his true influence? What's his true, what's he really doing? What I will say is, I personally, my only experience with the Groypers was being invited in 2020 to a CPAC after party by Cassandra Fairbanks, where the what was it? The Groypers were there, right? And going there and actually talking to these people. And one of the guys was really drunk, and he starts, he was Nick's secondhand guy. I mean, there's all kinds of pictures with this guy around with him. He starts divulging to me all this information about how a bunch of them got rolled up by the FBI and were made into FBI informants. And basically he was tasked with keeping tabs on Fuentes. So, I mean, what is this? Is this some kind of an operation? Are they assets? I mean, what is going on here? It's very interesting to see this type of stuff. But, I mean, what is this? Is it a professional LARPing or trolling? I mean, that's the real question here. Check out this clip so you guys can kind of get an idea of the lunacy that we're dealing with when it comes to Fuentes, and why it seems like they have these characters who are, it's their job to go out and get a really bad name and reputation, and then stick them on to people like Trump to then have this, lack of character by association, if that makes any sense. Like, basically, oh, you associated with this person, now you're a horrible person. Your reputation's ruined. Check it out. Listen to this.
People calling me gay because I've never had a girlfriend. I think if anything, it makes me less gay. If anything, it makes me not gay. As opposed to less gay. Not that there's any gay, but it makes me not gay. Well, because think about it this way. A gay people do date girls all the time. Real. And when I said on Elijah Schaefer's show, when they said, have you ever been in a romantic relationship? Have you ever had sex with a girl? And I said, no. Name searched me on Twitter, as I always do. All these gay people are coming out and saying, I've had more girlfriends than Nick. I've had sex with more girls than Nick. So like I said last week, not only is that thinking flawed, but actually it's the reverse. That actually makes me really more heterosexual than anybody. If we're really being honest, never having a girlfriend, never having sex with a woman really makes you more heterosexual. Because honestly, dating women is gay. Having sex with women is gay. And having sex with men is gay. And you know, it's all gay. And if you want to know the truth, the only really straight heterosexual position is to be an asexual incel. That's it.
Okay, so there you have it. All right. Is it trolling? Is it you know, just complete insanity? You be the judge of it. What I will say is I do find it very interesting how he seems to be talking to a lot of the men in the conservative movement who are supposedly that he knows about that are actually closet homosexuals, which I've heard a lot of different stories about particular people in the conservative movement, right? But it speaks to an underlying issue, an underlying problem. All right. There's a serious problem with compromisation. There's a certain type of lifestyle that certain people in the conservative movement get wrapped up into, where, you know, next thing they know, they're at a party and they're getting roofied and they're doing things on camera, right? And they're being compromised. And this is a real problem in the conservative movement right now. And we know that Milo Yiannopoulos, who's a formerly gay man, right? Apparently he now is saying he's straight and Catholic. He was the one who connected Nick Fuentes to Kanye West and set up this whole thing. All right. So what in the world is going on in clown world? I mean, hopefully, some of the information I've put forward with you here today can help you to kind of better get an idea of the reality of the situation that we're dealing with here. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show today. I'm Millie Weaver, signing off.